6 years ago this month, the Supreme Court made same-sex marriage legal in all 50 states. But the LGBTQ community is still fighting for broader legal protections. 29 states do not have laws that explicitly shield LGBTQ Americans from discrimination. The result is a patchwork of protections that vary from state to state. In an effort to expand protections for the LGBTQ community, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer plans to take up the Equality Act. The bill was originally introduced to Congress in 2015. A new version of the bill passed in the House earlier this year. If passed in the Senate, it would protect LGBTQ Americans from discriminatory practices in federally funded programs, employment, housing, loan applications, and education. The president has indicated he would sign the bill. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News political reporter Grace Segers. Hi there, Grace. So the House passed the Equality Act. Where does it stand in the Senate?
So the problem in the Senate is that it needs to be taken up in the first place. Basically, it's pretty much lounging in the Senate right now because although Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has promised that he will take it up and bring it to the vote, it's not clear when that will occur. Now, obviously, the symbolism of having a vote on it this month would be significant, given that this is Pride Month. And Senator Schumer said last month that it is an option that he could take it up in June. But it's unclear right now whether or when the Senate will vote on it. And when it does, whether it will get sufficient support in order to even advance.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, Grace. Does it appear as though it has enough yes votes in the Senate?
That's the second big problem, is that there are only 50 Democratic senators who, with Vice President Kamala Harris, have the majority. But in order for legislation to advance in the Senate, it requires 60 votes, meaning that at least 10 Republicans would have to support it. Now, as it stands right now, that's looking incredibly unlikely. There aren't any Republican co-sponsors for the bill. And a lot of Republicans have raised concerns about how this will pertain to federally funded faith-based organizations who may be affected by this legislation. And they worry about how it could infringe upon religious liberties. It also doesn't necessarily have the support of at least one Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin, who had previously raised concerns about the bill and whether it provided enough guidance for local officials to enforce it. So it's really unclear whether it would get sufficient support, not even just to be passed, but to advance and to limit debate on the bill itself.
Yeah, so how are some advocates of the Equality Act, including public figures, trying to help get it passed?
So there's a huge campaign going on at GLAAD, which is called the Summer of Equality, where supporters can go to the GLAAD website, sign their names, and GLAAD will, on their behalf, contact their senators and say that their constituents are supporting the bill. And I spoke to a consultant for GLAAD who told me that they're really trying to reach out to moderate Republicans in particular, such as Senator Susan Collins, who co-sponsored the bill in 2019, but due to concerns that she says hasn't been addressed, has not co-sponsored it this year. We're also seeing support from public figures, specifically like pop singer Taylor Swift, who is a very big supporter of the Equality Act and has tweeted about it and posted about it on social media and encouraged her fans to reach out to their lawmakers and tell them that they really want the Equality Act to be passed. So there's organizations other than GLAAD as well that are looking to sort of promote constituents' ideas and voices to Republican senators in specific, but also just generally to the Senate as a whole, because a lot of the provisions included in the Equality Act are broadly popular among Americans. So the idea is that if these organizations can get regular Americans who care about LGBTQ equality and protections to call their senators, then maybe it could help move the needle a little bit.
All right, we'll continue to watch that issue. I also want to ask you about voting rights legislation, which I know you've been covering, Grace. There are a pair of bills currently being considered in the Senate. Where do they stand right now?
So the first bill that you're talking about is the For the People Act, which is a sweeping elections and voting reform bill that Senator Schumer has said he will definitely bring up by the end of June. The problem with this, again, is that it doesn't have sufficient support to advance in the Senate. It doesn't have any Republican support at the moment, and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin has said that he doesn't support it because he believes that it is too partisan. However, Manchin does support another bill, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which would restore a provision of the 1965 Voting Rights Act that was struck down by the Supreme Court in 2013. So this bill is more broadly popular among moderate Democrats, and some are hoping that it could possibly garner support from Republicans as well. That has yet to be seen. The bill has not yet been introduced in this session of Congress. It is currently being written, and I spoke to Congressman G.K. Butterfield, who is working on evidentiary field hearings for the bill, and said that he expected that would probably be brought before the House in September. Again, though, it's unclear whether this will get any Republican support, which is something to watch out for.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because what does that process actually look like of the congressman that you spoke with actually gathering up and compiling evidence of discriminatory voting practices from a number of states? Grace, what does that actually look like? And in reality, as you say, what are the chances that it might actually sway some Republicans who might be on the fence?
So right now, a lot of field hearings are ongoing by the subcommittee led by Congressman Butterfield. And what they're doing is they're talking to state officials and voting officials from different states about possible evidence of discriminatory behavior, specifically towards minority voters. So they want to make sure that this bill is, as Speaker Nancy Pelosi put it, constitutionally ironclad. They want to be able to show the Supreme Court, if needed, that this bill has compiled enough evidence to show that there are discriminatory practices ongoing, and that because of these discriminatory practices, this key provision of the Voting Rights Act should be restored functionally by this bill. So right now they're having field hearings. Congressman Butterfield told me that they have so far had 3 of 6. After those 6 hearings are complete, they're going to send thousands of pages to the House Judiciary Committee, which is going to actually oversee the markups for the bill. I've been told that it will also be introduced again by Congresswoman Terry Sewell, who introduced the bill and was its lead sponsor in the previous session of Congress. So she will likely be instrumental in writing up the bill based on the evidence that Congressman Butterfield's subcommittee presents. So that's kind of the process that we're going to be seeing. Unfortunately, for supporters of the bill, it doesn't seem as if it's likely to get much Republican support. I've been hearing from Republican senators who say that they're concerned that it's federal overreach. And Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell came out against it as well. And without his support, he really kind of signals where the Republicans in the Senate are on any given issue. And so his lack of support indicates that it's largely unpopular among the Republican caucus as a whole. So despite all of the work that's about to go into it, I would expect that it'll pass in the Democratic majority House. But again, once it gets to the Senate, that's the sticking point. Is it going to get those 10 votes needed in order for it to advance? And at the moment, it doesn't look like that's likely to happen.
All right, CBS News political reporter Grace Segers for us. Grace, thank you.
Thank you.